Welcome to ePathshala. I am Dr. Subhrangshu Satra, Assistant Professor of Rural Management, Vishwabharati, Sriniketan. Here the model number is RMS 5, that is data, type and its sources. In this model, an attempt has been made to discuss what is data, what type of data, and with this we can try here how many methods are there to collect data from the field for any kind of research studies. Here PRA, that is Participatory Rural Appraisal method or tools or method and tools are also discussed with a suitable example to gather the field level data with the active participation of the people and to give some suggestions also. Data is a plural form of a Latin word datum. In social science, it is treated as a plural noun and used with a plural verb. For example, we write the data were classified. Data is basically the combination of different kinds of observation either in quantitative or in qualitative form needed to express any problem of our society as well as to find out possible solution of that problem through using appropriate methods of collection of data in a research study. The procurement of observation from different sources for a single object is known as collection of data. So, data is the only ladder whose systematic arrangement can help to reach the actual objective of any study. In any research, data are used to draw conclusions which help us to understand our environment better. We use data to adjust ourselves to the environment or to change it. The objective and subjective point of view of data. Data can be viewed both from objective and subjective points of view. The objective point of view accepts that the data are validated in the sense that they must be measured and recorded accurately. Data can be shown to be true if they correspond to reality. The objective point of view makes the following assumptions about data. Data are factual, resulting from recording of measurable events or objects. Data represent information and are the only way we can make information explicit. Data record particular instance of reality. Data are explicit as they are in a fixed recorded form. Hence, data can be communicated digitally. On the other hand, the subjective point of view makes the following assumptions about data. The data are not necessarily true or accurate as not all errors can be detected automatically and not everyone will necessarily agree that they are a true representation of a particular fact. Some data record subjective opinion, no facts. If data can represent opinions and concepts, they are not truly objective. Data have absolutely no meaning. They acquire meaning only when appropriate and analyzed by a human recipient in a particular context. Types of data. There are many ways of classifying data. Common classification is done based on who collected the data. The primary data is collected by the investigator himself or herself for his or her specific purpose. Field data collected by any researcher are primary data. The term secondary data is used to mean that the data collected by someone else for some other purpose, but being utilized by the investigator for his or her own research purpose. Another way to classify data is to refer to their characteristics like numerical or quantitative and non-numerical or qualitative. Information about the age of respondents is quantitative because age is expressed in number, say 38 years. It is possible to quantify many aspects of social living. For instance, apart from age, we can also quantify height, weight, literacy, income, or distance. We also further divided such quantitative data into two more groups, continuous and discrete. A continuous variable, also called continuous random variate, is capable for manifesting every conceivable fractional value within the range of possibilities, such as the height of the children of an ICDS center or weight of a person donating blood in a camp. In a continuous variable, thus, data are obtained by numerical measurements rather than counting. For example, the height of an individual may have any value between, say, from 60 inches to 74 inches. It may be 66.4 inches or 66.47 inches or even 66.46589 inches, provided we could measure the height so precisely. A discrete variable is that which can vary only by finite jumps and cannot manifest every conceivable fractional value. The number of children per family, the number of members per self-help groups, number of classrooms per primary schools are example of this type. Qualitative data. On the other hand, religion of a group of people is qualitative because religion cannot be stated in numerical terms. A person should either be Hindu or Muslim or Buddhist or Christians or others. There are many non-numerical concepts like love, relationship, sentiment, emotion, feeling that are difficult to quantify. In qualitative form, data are classified on the basis of some attribute or quality like sex, literacy, color of hair, religion, etc. It is essential to mention that in this type of classification, the attribute under any study cannot be measured. It can be classified into different groups and one can find out whether it is present or absent in the unit of the problem under study. Sources of data, primary sources and secondary sources. Data may be obtained either from the primary sources or from the secondary sources. Primary data are original in character and are generated through survey or field work conducted by the government, individual or institutions and research bodies. Secondary data are those that were previously been collected by some persons or agency for one purpose. For example, a person or agency conducting a research might use the findings and analysis of any other researcher to argue a point. In the chapter of review of literature, in particular, scholars writing a thesis or article use arguments or findings of other scholars to arrive at certain assessment of situations. These data or findings or analysis are secondary for anyone carrying out research. Advantages for use of primary data. It is preferable to make use of primary source wherever possible for the following reasons. First, the secondary source may contain mistake due to errors in transcription made when the figures were copied from the primary sources. Second, the primary sources frequently includes definitions of terms and units used. Third, primary sources often includes a copy of a schedule or a description of the procedure used in selecting and in collecting the data. And lastly, primary sources usually shows data in greater detail. Advantage for use of secondary data. First, it is highly convenient to use information which someone else has compiled. There is no need for printing data collection forms, hiring enumerators, editing and tabulating the result, etc. Second, its secondary data are available, they are much quicker to obtain than primary data. Next, secondary data may be available on almost all subjects where it would be impossible to collect primary data. For example, census data cannot be collected by an individual or research organizations, but can only be obtained from government publication. Choice between primary and secondary data. Selection of use of primary data and secondary data depends on following factors. Nature and scope of the inquiry. On the basis of the nature and scope of the study, it is to be decided whether the study would be based on primary data or secondary data. As for example, if it is an evaluation study like the impact of MGNREGA for improving the standard of living of the people of Muidupur village of Jamalpur block of Bardhaman district, then the sources of data must be primary. On the other hand, if we are involved in assessing the increase in per capita income in India on last decade, then we have to go through secondary data. Next, availability of financial resources. As the financial involvement is high in collection of primary data, then we should prefer to conduct study on the basis of secondary data to cover vast area where the financial support is less. Availability of time is an important determinant to conduct study on the basis of primary data or secondary data. Degree of accuracy desired. The main barrier to use of secondary data is degree of accuracy. As the society is changing, all the data are changing with time. Basically, we can get suitable secondary data which are published in 1, 2, 5 or 10 years ago. So, the actual situation may not be represented properly if we conduct the study on the basis of secondary data. The collecting agency. Sources of data for conducting any study also depends on the collecting agency, that is whether the study is conducting by an individual or an institution or a government body. Publications containing primary and secondary data. Primary data. Census of India published by the Office of the Registrar General and Census Commissioner, Ministry of Home Affairs. Next, a report published by National Sample Survey Organization, Government of India, Kolkata. Reserve Bank of India Bulletin issued monthly by Reserve Bank of India. Crime in India published by National Crime Record Bureau of the Ministry of Home Affairs, Central Statistical Organization, New Delhi. And for secondary data, official documents like Statistical Abstract of the Indian Union issued by Central Statistical Organization, New Delhi, doctoral thesis made available by UGC Grant Commission at Sudganga InflibNet website, research articles available at several journals, books, mass media output, encyclopedia and dictionaries and etc. Methods of collection of primary data. We all know that different methods are adopted mainly to collect primary data to fulfill the objective of the study. The following are the most widely used methods: direct personal observation, indirect oral interview, questionnaire sent by mail, schedule filled up by investigators, case study method, participatory rural appraisal method. Direct personal interview. In this method, the investigator collects the required information in a face-to-face contact with the respondent to whom the information to be obtained. The investigator asks them questions pertaining to the survey and collects the desired information. Focus group interview or focus group discussion is a type of interview that facilitates collection of qualitative data. Even though FGD is a form of group interview, the difference between the focus group methods and the group interview is by no means clear, and the two more frequently employed interchangeably. Indirect oral interview. In this method, the investigator contacts third parties to get information. The method is generally adopted in those cases where the information to be obtained in a complex nature and the informants are not inclined to respond if approached directly. For example, in this study regarding addiction to drug, alcohol, etc., people may be reluctant to provide information about their own habit. Most of the commissions of inquiry or committees appointed by government collect primary data by this method. Schedules filled up by investigators. It is the most widely used method of collection of primary data. Here investigators are employed for data collection. The investigators carry with the printed schedules specially designed for the purpose and filled up the schedules themselves on spot based on answers received from the respondents. The method is very popular and yields satisfactory result. Questionnaire sent by post or mail. Under this method, questionnaire is sent to different respondents by post or mail. A request is made to the respondents through a covering letter and possible guideline for how to fill up the questionnaire and send it back within a given time periods. This method can be adopted where the field investigations is very large and the respondents are distributed over a wide geographical area. It is also relatively cheap. Case study method. Case study method enables a researcher to closely examine the data within a specific context. In most cases, a case study method selects a small geographical area or a very limited number of individuals as the subjects of study. Ain in the year of 1994 has mentioned that the case study design must have 5 components: the research questions, the research propositions, units of analysis, how the data are linked to the propositions and criteria to interpret the findings. Participatory rural appraisal method, that is PRA. Participatory rural appraisal, a tool and method to collect primary data from the field in a very short period of time with the active participation of local people of the area. Initially, to apply this method and tools to collect primary data, researcher has to build up a sound rapport with the participants. Then researcher has to explain the purpose of the exercise to the participants. Researcher has to find out the leisure time of the respondents to conduct PRA. According to Somesh Kumar, in the year of 2002, there are 4 pillars of PRA: methods and tools, process, sharing, and attitude and behavior. Again, we consider that attitude and behavior in PRA is the most important pillar and it is central to PRA and more important than methods. The attitude and behavior in PRA includes self-awareness of one's behavior, accountability to the poor, self-respect and respecting others, good listeners, ability to handing over the sticks. In conclusion, we can say that quality of any research paper or any research report depends on the data, and specifically we can call that depends on the quality of primary data with a supporting secondary data. Here we discussed so many methods are there to collect primary data from the field. Some mathematicians believe that there are 2 types of data, that is primary data and secondary data. Some mathematicians believe that no, there are another 2 types of data, that is qualitative data and quantitative data, and they believe that primary and secondary are 2 sources of data, not type of data. Whatever be, we have to use properly all this data to give our report better. Here we discussed about PRA, that is participatory rural appraisal method or tools to collect data from the field. We can collect data with a very short period of time with the active help of the rural people through this method. But the main thing is that the researchers adapted methods are the more appropriate to conduct a research study better, because our subject is social science. There is no method or tool to measure our society, and that is why it is social science. Thank you.